All right. All right. Well, everybody, we talk about farming and floristry all the time. And of course, the topic of Farmer Florist is also really popular. So I'm excited to have my guest today, Natalie Geehr of thefarmerflorist.com. And she is in Fresno, California. And she's a small farm with a big dream and doing a lot of great things. Welcome, Natalie, to the Flower Podcast.
Thank you so much, Scott. I am so grateful and thankful to be talking to you today. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, I just am really excited because you do so many things and you're a part of so many things. And I think that I just can't wait to get into your story. So let's begin at the beginning. How did you find your way into the world of flowers?
Oh man, well, probably pretty similarly to a lot of people. I've always had a garden. I've lived in LA for 12 years, would always find a corner of the patio to just jam pack with whatever I could grow. Um, and my long-term plan was to have a plot of land that I could grow roses on, actually. My first dream was to be a rose grower. We were living in the Bay Area at that time. In 2020, I had my first daughter and the world shut down and
Oh,
we
yeah,
were,
there's that.
yes. So we were looking around our one bedroom apartment, trying to work remotely. And we just looked at each other and said, we've got to get some more space. So I grew up in Fresno, California, and I had the most amazing childhood here. And I just looked at my husband and I was like, I know a place we can go. Let's go back to Fresno. And we visited a few times just to make sure that he could stand the hot summers because our summers are very, very hot and he's not from Fresno. So I didn't want to, lure him back to our scorching, desert climate and have him be miserable.
Right.
Um, so we moved back in fall of 2020, and I kind of realized that I might be able to fast track that long-term plan of growing and just why not just get started now? I had my daughter who was a baby at the time, and I absolutely loved being a mom, but I also have a lot of just creative energy and I wasn't able to work at the time. And so I was looking around and my parents I grew up in Clovis and my sister rode horses growing up and they have her old horse arena just sitting in the backyard, completely unused space. And I was like, flat land not being used. So of course, roll out my whole presentation. I'm an eldest daughter. So, of course I had a whole PowerPoint for them. And I was like, here's how it'll go down. And my dad was like, what? And my mom was like, oh, honey. And I was like, no, 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 I promise. This will be good. This will be great. So they gave me like a 30 by 30 plot to start on that first year. And I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. So I took the floret course and loved that and got super into my spreadsheets and everything and quickly realized that spreadsheets are great to start with, but they don't help you much once you're in the thick of the growing season. So anyway, that first season, I just grew just everything from seed, everything that, all the easy things to start with, learned a ton and started the woman that lived next door was actually a florist. And I asked her, well, where do you buy your flowers? And she said, oh, I get up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. I drive up to the San Francisco flower market, get my flowers, drive back, start processing. And I was like, oh man, that is insane and good for you. But what do you want me to grow so that you don't have to do that as much anymore? Or I can help you out with that. So she gave me a wish list of flowers and yeah, I just kind of started growing from there and started reaching out to other florists in my area and figuring out what they wanted and yeah, just making plans from there. And then, of course, everybody wanted ranunculus and I came back to my parents with another spreadsheet and a presentation and said, okay, I need to build raised beds. Like I need to expand this. I need to use that whole arena basically. They're like, okay, let's drop a lease agreement. And that was, a lot of overhead investment. And I was so nervous. I was like, what am I doing to my family right now? What is going on? Where am I going to sell these flowers? I was really nervous, but that first spring growing ranunculus, I definitely overgrew. So I can cautionary tale there, but it was also so beautiful and so amazing, and I've been hooked ever since. So my biggest crop is definitely ranunculus, and I do a lot of spring flowers. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Just kind of
Wow.
snowballed from there.
And this is your fourth season.
Yes, yeah, this is my fourth season now.
Okay.
So yeah, still, I live about 15 minutes from my field. So I don't own my land. I've jammed my own backyard full of like anything that will fit, just so that things like Icelandic poppies and just really delicate things like all of my roses I have in my backyard because they have such a short harvest window. So anything I need to get to really quickly, I have in my backyard, and then the things that just need like a ton of space, like all the ranunculus and the delphinium and all those things are at the field. So
Wow.
yeah, it's definitely been like a huge learning curve, as my daughter has gotten older and I've had another daughter, and trying to juggle like how just schedules, everything's changing and how to get out there, get the work done. But also like be present as a mom. So yeah, and be a good business owner too, and not let down my clients. It's been a steep, it's been a challenge, but a good challenge. I think it's kept me busy, and it's made me feel like I have a purpose again, where I felt like in 2020, like I was just floundering and lost. And, that scene in Talladega Nights where he's like, what do I do with my hands? And it's like, what do I do? Okay, I'm gonna grow some flowers. Now my hands are busy. I feel good. Great. So it was very healing for me as well.
I love that. That's great. Well, then, the area that you're growing on, I know being that it's so hot, like this time of year, are you
Mhm.
doing a lot this time of year, or are you pretty much like fall, spring situation?
Yeah, the first couple seasons I tried to just like keep pushing through the summer with sunflowers and zinnias and
Mm,
this. But I quickly learned that in our hot summers, and I'm sure like things slow down in the summer a lot, just sales wise, in lots of different areas, but especially in our area, people leave and they'll go on vacation, or they'll go to their lake house or to the coast or something like that. Um, and so the appetite for cut flowers definitely goes down. So when you have like rows and rows of Lysianthus blooming, but no one to buy them, then it's pretty frustrating. So I've pulled back on my summer crops a lot. We have a very long spring, without like covered anything. We had ranunculus blooming, like mid-March this year. So our spring starts pretty early, and then and you can always push it if you have a greenhouse or if you have like row cover or something like that. You can push it earlier too. And then we kind of like peter out mid-July, the triple digits hit, and everybody takes a little break. And then we come back. We're actually like coming back officially like next week, which will be the first week of September. And we have a really long fall. So I'll have zinnias and cosmos like go into early December sometimes.
wow.
So yeah. We sometimes have very long falls here. Um, and if we get a frost, then the dahlias will, of course, go. But if we don't, it's great because dahlias really only start going for us in like mid-September, um, like into October. So it's such a short window to like try and maximize such an expensive crop. I don't do dahlias because I just can't keep up with the workload on it, but I know some growers that do, and October is just beautiful for them. So yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I never really think about that. And even though I know we just released an episode not long ago where we were talking about growing this time of year or in the summer, and a lot of growers kind of take a break or they kind of wind down and then build back up, and so they're not killing themselves during this really bad time of year. But I just think, where you're at, it's so dry on top of everything. And here in the South, we're dealing with a lot of that dryness right now. And
Mm.
it makes me think about everything you deal with. But I'm glad, I'm also not glad, but I'm interested because, um, so many parts of the country this year, we're kind of back to what I used to call pre-pandemic. And I think I've mentioned it on the podcast, sort of, demand levels of flowers. And so a lot of people, because I think we were all pent up for so long, we really value the vacation. We really value that time away,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're not spending it on flowers, or maybe they're going to a wedding or something. But even still, I think it's kind of interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, things will definitely grow here in the summer, but it's tough on your energy levels and your morale if you don't have somebody to sell them to. So
right.
I just pulled back on that a little bit. And it's still worth growing Lysianthus. I just don't grow as much
Mm,
Lysianthus because
good
we
point.
will a second and a third flush into fall. But of course, that first flush a lot of times just kind of goes in the compost bin.
That's sad.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, that's interesting too. Well, I think when do you like when you're planting and planning for your long fall season, especially with zinnias, when are you planting those? When are they getting in the ground if you're starting to harvest them in mid-September?
Um, so I kind of failed on mine this year, so I'm not the best person to talk to about that. But if you plant them, if you start them in beginning of July and get them out, like, we will always have like a week or two when it's not triple degrees. So if you can transplant them, or cover them with some shade cloth until they get established, or even direct sow them, um, then that's kind of when I start my late zinnias. And our late cosmos really like the fall too. They don't like our May and June cosmos always struggle a little bit for some
Hmm,
reason, but we do well with them like through the rest of the fall.
interesting. Okay. Well, one thing that I thought was really cool, obviously with your name being thefarmerflorist.com, yet you are doing some, I guess the question I should ask is, uh, what are you doing as far as selling your flowers? How are you marketing your flowers? I feel like you've got multiple streams, and I always think that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I think because I'm so small, I've tried to diversify my revenue streams, just to make sure that every week I'm making what I need to make. So I did start just selling wholesale to straight to florists, and I was kind of realizing like there's certain weeks that are busier than others, just event wise. So when I don't have that florist demand, how can I make up for that? So I started offering subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
I started out with jars and then realized that there was a little bit more of a um, appetite just for an arrangement subscription. I think there were a lot of people that were doing wraps and jars and things like that. Um, and I don't offer just like on demand, hey, I need you know, an arrangement and I need it delivered today. I don't really do that. So I started offering arrangement subscriptions and people could pick their days. And that has worked out really well because a lot of my customers will say, oh yeah, like, I can get my Easter, my Mother's Day arrangements just lined up, ready to go and not have, that crazy, like, oh shoot, Easter's next week and I didn't get flowers, or Mother's Day is, tomorrow or whatever. And it's already done. Um, so I've really enjoyed the arrangement subscription part of my business. And then I think the events came about just like slowly and organically folks were asking, like, do you do events? And at first I'd say, no, not really. And then I started slowly saying, like, actually, yeah, like, let's see what this would look like. Um, the first wedding I did, I drove down for a friend's wedding in LA, used all the flowers for her wedding were from my field, and I was so proud of it. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm so into this. Um, Drove down, did her wedding, drove back, and then started farming the rest of the week and taking care of my daughter. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've been hit by a bus. Like, this is not okay. So I quickly learned, like, you cannot, well, I personally can't, maybe some people can. I cannot mom and farm all week and then go do events on the weekend. And then just be okay to like do that the next week again. I was it like everything hurt. I was so tired. I was like, oh my God. So it was a little audacious of me, but I just set a minimum really early on for weddings and just said,
Okay.
like, if somebody wants to pay me this much and it's going to be something that's like really fills my cup creatively, and it's something that I know I'll look back on and be like, oh, I'm so proud of that event, then yes, let's do it. But the ones that were just on the lower budget range, where it almost feels like people just know they need flowers, but they want them the cheapest way possible or something like that, I knew that was going to drain me really, really quickly. So I just say no to those. And I know there's other people that is their niche. So I just funnel them that way. But in doing so, I also realized there was an opportunity to do events a la carte. So if somebody really is passionate about wanting locally grown flowers at their event or at their wedding, but they can't meet my minimum, I have an a la carte menu where we can still do beautiful bowl arrangements and bouquets and bridesmaid bouquets, boutonnieres, anything that you can carry out yourself. If you can come pick it up from me, then I'm happy to do it. I just know that energy wise, I could not go and do full
Right.
service floristry unless it meets a certain minimum. So yeah, so we do just a handful of full service weddings per year, and the a la carte events throughout the season. And then I have a spring floral arrangement subscription and a fall floral arrangement subscription. And then the wholesale happens every single week. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I definitely want to get to that, but I want to ask you first. A lot of times people are trying to figure out ways to create that new revenue stream. How did you start? Like you're growing flowers now. You, I guess, sold some to some florists, maybe.
Yeah.
How did you start your subscriptions? Like, how did you get the word out there? How did you build those clients?
Yeah. I partnered with a local boutique shop at the Avenue, and the owner was amazing in helping promote my subscriptions. She is a mompreneur herself, and so I feel like she was incredibly just well aligned and like really supportive of what I was doing. So that is how I sort of launched my first subscription, and that's when I was just doing the jars. So I definitely that was key for me. I really think whenever you can partner with other like-minded businesses, I think it's always a good idea, because when you're small and you're starting out, I think it's, of course, always great to, everyone would say, like, why don't you do a pop-up? Why don't you do go to the farmer's market? And I was like, that sounds wonderful. And if I were in a different stage of life, like, I would absolutely be there.
Right.
But I only have so many hours to dedicate to this right now. So I need to be extremely ruthless about like what is worth the bang for the buck. So yeah, I haven't given away that many flowers. I haven't done things like that. I haven't ever been part of a farmer's market. Um, I have not really done pop-ups either. So it's really just been like, okay, find the right partner and work with them to do something that you're gonna get a return for your effort that you're putting in. And I do think, especially with flowers, you're a lot of times they kind of get talked about in this way that's like everyone deserves flowers and
Mm.
like beauty is meant to be shared. And I agree with all of those things, but when you're the one growing them and it's your time, and every hour I spend in my field is an hour that I'm not with my family, or I'm paying for a babysitter or something like that. So while I agree that everybody deserves flowers and flowers are meant to be shared, um, I'm just not the farmer that's able to give them away because I need to value my time too. So,
Well, I think
um,
that's important. I mean, having the boundaries and understanding that dynamic, and I think, maybe you don't have the biggest property that you're growing on or the most customers, but finding that balance while you're learning, because I mean, let's not forget that, right? I mean, you're learning how to grow, you're learning how to,
mhm.
market yourself, you're learning all these things
Oh
at the
yeah,
same time. So
yeah,
there's a
exactly.
learning curve. And even though you took, Aaron's course, and I'm sure that was really helpful, but, it's still, you know, growing in Washington State and Fresno are two totally different places. So,
Yeah.
there's still a learning curve for sure. Well, I'm curious, what kind of, I mean, you don't have to give the name of the place, but what kind of boutique was it? Was it like,
It was home goods, like home decor,
okay,
like boutique. Mm-hmm.
okay.
So lots of things for the home. Mm-hmm.
So that's a natural fit, flowers for your home to enjoy, people shopping for their home and all of
Yeah.
that. I think sometimes that's where people kind of also like they may try a coffee shop because these people are in there every day, or they may try different places, restaurants, or other kind of businesses, and I think I think also having the support of another mompreneur that is gets this what you're trying to do also is helpful.
Oh,
That was yeah.
I do think coffee shops are an amazing spot. We just Fresno, I love Fresno to death, but we don't have as many independently owned places that are also convenient for me to get to. A lot
Right.
of the small businesses are in our downtown area, and that's wonderful. But it does take me a little bit longer to get there from where I live, so it's not. And my um, key customers probably can't get there either. So
Hmm.
it's it's just I do think coffee shops are a really good match usually though.
Well,
Yeah,
too, I mean, there's a frequency of foot traffic that I think is
absolutely.
everyone finishes their coffee today and then there's tomorrow, right? Or something like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, interesting. You said something that made me think about this. So, how do you deliver your subscriptions? Do they meet at that boutique, or do you coordinate that some other way?
Yeah, I when I was doing them through the shop, I would drop them off on Fridays and they would pick them up. They could either pick them up from my house or from the shop. And now with the floral subscriptions, I offer delivery or pickup because there's a smaller number of them. I don't need to sell as many to hit my sales goals. So I'm happy to offer delivery, especially to make sure it doesn't tip over or, you know, get left on a door. You're like, I don't know, just damaged. I can ensure that it gets to the house like looking the way that I made it. So
Right.
uh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. And do you have like a delivery area that you try to keep within? Because I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
Fresno's not little, so
it's not little, and I definitely have learned that the hard way, just checking zip codes when orders come through.
yeah,
It's a little hard, like, oh man, that okay. All right, that's gonna take an hour round trip to go deliver that one arrangement. But I just kind of put that in the category. That was one of my big learnings this year. But I kind of felt like, since I haven't done a lot of giveaways or, like promotional things, like, okay, maybe that's my thing that I gave, like, oh, $15 for a 30-minute away delivery. Yeah, that's basically a donation. So
Yeah, for sure. Now, do you charge for delivery? It's like if they're
Yeah.
outside, you don't?
I charge just anywhere in Fresno, Clovis is $15.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just what feels good to me and feels like what people are able to pay. Um, and then I just don't deliver any further than that unless it's for a larger special order for
Mm.
something that we agreed on and it, you know,
Hmm.
feels good in that way. So
And let me ask about this a la carte thing because not everybody might know what you're saying when you say that. So,
yeah,
tell us about that. Tell us how that works. And I mean, I know
yeah.
when you say wedding, we kind of have an expectation, especially if you're trying to do a smaller one. But yeah, tell us about the world of a la carte.
Yes, I know. I love a la carte so much, and I think that it's something that more people should take advantage of. Um, the first company that I saw that was doing it that I was like, that looks great, was actually Native Poppy. She has a whole menu on her
Yeah.
website. And I was looking at it and I was like, that makes a lot of sense, because there are events where you're not going to want to spend like X amount on flowers, but you still want the flowers to be beautiful and you know who your favorite designer is, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, it doesn't always like fill my cup to just put jars of flowers out on my front porch. I want to be creating something really beautiful for somebody. Um, So the middle ground, I guess, between full service and the jars on the front porch was the a la carte service. And so it was definitely like trial and error, trying to figure out like what are the things that people typically need for this like niche of event. And it definitely seems like people really like to have bud vases. Well, okay, what's the cost of a bud vase and are they returning it? And if they return it, then you have to clean it and that's more time. So when you're doing a full service job, you're building in usually a percentage to account for the labor time and your design fee and things like that. But with a la carte, you're essentially saying like, I'm taking that labor fee off because you're going to do the setup and you're going to do this and that. Um, but with things like a bud vase, for example, like that, if that gets returned not clean, it is gross and terrible. So,
That's a good
um,
point. It's a really good point.
yeah. So for bud vases, for example, like I had someone order 100 bud vases and I said, okay, you can do that, but the price is going to be a little bit higher per bud vase and you keep them. You do with them what you want because if I get them back and have to clean every single one, that's no longer like a profitable job for me. So,
Hmm.
um, that's the only time I've had to sort of like negotiate on like what you're paying per item, I guess. Other than that, I have a honeybook flow where somebody just goes in, there are items on a menu, they can choose their palette, they can choose their size of what they want per arrangement. There's one option, there's bridal bouquet and a petite bouquet. Um, and then they can share notes, they can share Pinterest boards, but I'm not getting on a consultation call. I'm not meeting in person. We can communicate over email and that sort of thing, but I do think that it's just more of a like, you know what you need. I'm excited to make it for you, and you're going to pick it up, and that's that. So, yeah, the price of the bases is just built into like the price per item and it leaves my studio and that's it. So yeah, that's a la carte.
Wow, that seems great. So did you get pushback when it came to like the person with 100 bud vases, or did they understand?
They understood. They understood. Yeah. They're a wonderful client for sure. I just was looking at it and I was like, oh, haven't had someone order 100 bud vases before. And I was thinking about it and I was like, you know, I think that it makes more sense for you to just keep these. So yeah, I guess I should say there is an option if they want to return the vases. They can. If they want, I have like my standard vases that I'll do for a la carte, but then I also have a collection of like handmade ceramic vases, and you definitely have to return those. So if you want to use those, you can, but you have to return them clean. And yeah, these bud vases sort of fell into that category. So I said, we're probably not going to do that, but I can order ones that you keep. And that seemed to work for everybody.
Right. No, I think it's great. I think it's a great idea, because a lot of times, you're like you mentioned already, you're so busy, you're being a mom, which is important. You're farming, you're trying to get your flowers grown, and you're trying to keep them alive sometimes, depending on the time of year. And it's hard. It's really hard. And then, this gives you an option to create some income and provide a value, product. I'm curious though, if they sent you Pinterest pictures, and you don't have consultations, I mean, what is their expectation when they pick up? Because that, I mean, being that, I mean, I deal with wedding people all the time, that kind of freaks me out just a little bit. So I'm just curious, obviously they trust you. They're willing to do whatever you think.
Yeah, I have it written in my form that's just like, these photos are meant for inspiration only, for me to get a sense of your style. I'll do what I can, but ultimately, like, we are choosing the best from what's blooming in the field that week, and that will inform the design. So it's very clearly written, like you can of course show me what you're hoping for, and I'll use that as like to interpret what you want into what the field is giving us that week.
That's great. That's great. Now, I definitely want to dig into this collective because you didn't have enough going on. You decided to help sort of collaborate and build a collective. I before we jump there completely, I wanted to ask, so like when you don't have things, do you partner with other local growers in the area to kind of source product, or do you bring stuff in from San Francisco, or is it truly just whether it's yours or other farmers' local product?
Yeah, for the design side of my business, I only use locally grown product, which means if you reach out to me for a wedding in December, I probably can't do it unless you're okay with like dried things and evergreen type things. Um,
Sure.
but yes, I do collaborate with other growers, and that has been probably one of the most fulfilling parts of like getting into this growing journey. And I think that I don't think I could do what I'm doing right now without having other local growers nearby. I think it would be way too frustrating. I think it would be way too isolating. Um,
Yeah.
I think just the having the support of your friends that are going through the same thing, like everybody has the same weather forecast that they're looking down the barrel of like 115
Right.
degrees. Like, what are we gonna do? So I think that early on, like in my past jobs, I've worked in marketing, and community organizing was always part of that unofficially. So it just seemed to me like when I found out there were other growers in my area, I immediately wanted to talk to them and like see how they were doing and learn from each other. I love like just sharing information, I guess. I think it's really important. I think that like the idea of reciprocity is like something that we don't talk about enough. I think a lot of times we're just looking to like Google to find the answer to a question, or ask somebody like for a quick answer. And
Yeah.
then we just move on, you DM somebody and you're like, hey, what do you do for this? And then you move on. And it's like, well, how about what can I help you with? Like, what are you going through? What can I help you with? How's your day going? Even just anything like that. So I found that the answer to that sort of like, we were so isolated in 2020. And so, and then also being a grower, like you're out there by yourself a lot of times, and like
Right.
stuff that's physically and emotionally frustrating a lot of times. And so I knew that I wanted to find other people that were doing the same thing, that we could just commiserate or celebrate each other together. So met a lot of my now like very good friends in the area. And it just sort of naturally started occurring where, I would be like, okay, I've got this florist that needs, 10 bunches of white Orlea, but I only have 6. Do you have any more? I'd say, yeah, I've got 4. And then another person would say, I've got 2. And so, get back to the florist and be like, all right, we've got the Orlea for you. Reach out to so-and-so and we coordinate it, but it was getting really messy because it was all through Instagram DMs and text messages and email. And that was taking a lot of time. And yeah, as becoming a common theme here, I'm like, we're always looking for more time, right? And I'm a sucker for like systems and efficiency. And I was like, okay, this is driving me crazy. This is like way too inefficient. There's definitely a better way to do this. So we just started using like Google spreadsheets, and we'd like group message, hey, who's looking, or this florist is looking for this list of items. And then in the spreadsheet, we'd put like what everybody had, and then the florist would go in and mark off what they wanted. And we were like, okay, that seems to like make things a little bit more streamlined. But then the florist still had to drive to like 5 different farms to pick up these orders. And here, if you're spending the day driving around to different farms picking up, while it's fun, it's fun to see the farms, meet the farmer, like that's a really fun experience. If you're really busy, if you're a very busy florist,
Right.
you might do that a couple times because it's fun, but then when push comes to shove, you may just order from Mayesh or just make the drive up to the SF Flower Mart. So we realized we needed to start like, really consolidating our efforts. So in 2022, we like wanted to test and just see what would happen if we all sold our flowers together. So we did a pop-up flower market on the patio of a coffee shop, and just wanted to see like what would happen if we all sold together. Do we get along? How's our pricing going to work out? Like, let's just see if we even like doing this first and like can get through this. So it went really well. And we set up a couple meetings after that to like figure out like, okay, what did we like about that? What did we not like about it? How can we streamline this even more? And at that time, a couple different platforms were coming out with ways to sell collaboratively. So we were evaluating the platforms and talking about it. And then we officially like formed our collective in the fall of 2022. And now we're wrapping up this will be like our second full year of selling together. So it's made a lot smoother. I will say it is a lot of work to get it going, to organize it, to get everything. It's hard. It's not there's 9 farms in our collective, and that's 9 different businesses, 9 different business models, 9 different personalities, different sales goals, different brands. So trying to navigate all of that and still have everybody feel good and happy about everything is, the goal. And then also to make our florist lives a lot easier. So yeah, sorry, I just blasted you with our collective story, but that is
No, that's what I wanted to know. So the name of it is the San Joaquin Flower Collective.
Yes. Yeah. Most people call our area, it's kind of like from Modesto down to Bakersfield. It's the San Joaquin Valley. We usually just call it Central Valley, but there's a lot of Central Valleys like all throughout the United States. So we just decided old school and go San Joaquin Valley or San Joaquin Flower Collective, SJFC. It's just kind of what we shorten it to. And we have 9 farms. 1 is up in Mariposa. Our furthest ones are down in Visalia, so they have about an hour drive that they need to get to us. But yeah, we all have like a central meeting location where we drop off, and then florists pick up once per week. So it's a lot of logistics and figuring all that good stuff out. But it's also just like it makes sourcing local flowers possible for florists that really want to design in that way. myself included. Like I, for example, like I have an event in a couple weeks that I need a lot of white cosmos for, and I just checked my cosmos this week and they're covered in aphids. And I was like, yeah, like if these don't recover in a couple weeks, I know there's like 5 other farms that have white cosmos. I'm going to be fine. So it takes a lot of the stress off of sourcing locally, I think. And I think it makes it a lot more doable for florists too.
No, I agree. And I think I love the idea where, florists can come and pick up their orders. And do you guys also have like extra product like you bring, or is it just the orders that are filled?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're all like fairly new growers too. So, like just the challenge of getting together and learning how to sell together was coupled with how do I forecast what I'm going to have
Mm.
blooming in 9 days, because you have
Hmm.
to list our availability to take pre-orders, and then we cut them um, a couple days before pickup and then deliver them. We have a shared cooler. Um, so just trying to figure out like how to forecast that properly, like has been it's tough, especially when you get big weather swings, like in March, like sometimes it'll be like 60 something degrees, and then the next week it'll be like 86, and then all of your ranunculus will pop open. So what we started doing was bringing our extras and having a live market that
Mm.
anyone could come to on our Wednesday pickup day. And we call it the Wednesday Flower Club.
I like
And
that.
we have, yeah. And so we've got all our pre-orders off to one side. And then we have our extras if things opened. Or we weren't really sure if we are going to have it, so we didn't list it, but oh, look, it did open. So now I have it and we can offer it to florists. Like, I know you were looking for more, blush tulips, like these actually did open if you want them. And if not, like we'll just sell them at our Wednesday Flower Club. Yeah.
Now, is that also open to the public?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's our first year. Last year we were just open to wholesale. We wanted to really like nail down that process first because our florists are our most important customers. Um, and this year we were like, let's, because people were asking, and they were like, can I buy? Can I buy? And finally we were like, we want to sell them, so let's do it. Let's just try it. And it went really well and it was actually really fun. So we found a coffee shop actually to partner with for the fall, so that we can be indoors in
Mm.
yeah, which will be really, really nice. And I think it's supposed to be 104 next Wednesday. So Wednesday Flower Club will be inside, which will be good for everyone, including the flowers.
Absolutely. Well, and okay, so I'm gonna ask this question, and hopefully it's not too touchy. So, if you've got I know, flower drama. So, if you are selling to florists, the retail people buying, do they pay the same price, or do they pay a higher price just because they're buying one bunch of this or whatever?
Yeah, where our wholesale program is for florists and people with a resale license,
Hmm.
and they have special pricing. And then if you aren't registered with our wholesale program, then there's just like regular retail pricing per bunch, but you still have to
Cool.
buy per bunch. We don't want to complicate things with buying per stem, things like
Yeah.
that. We want to be like you're walking into a traditional flower market where here are the bunches and you got to take the whole bunch, so because that's how it would be if you shopped in San Francisco or LA.
Right.
So
Right. Or you go to the grocery store. It's the same thing.
oh so, yeah.
Yeah, wherever you're buying flowers, you got to buy them by the bunch. So yeah, that's the thing. I was excited to hear because I know there's been a big push over the last couple years that you guys are using rooted farmers.
Yes, and God bless them. Yes.
Well, we're excited to have them as a sponsor again this year. And I will say that if you're new to Rooted Farmers, it's never too late to go ahead and sign up for a year. We have a code TFP24 that gives you $75 off either of the platforms. That's for growers. If you are a florist, it's absolutely free. So check them out. But I'm kind of curious, how did that work for you guys? Because I know with rooted farmers, there's kind of a learning curve. Not that it's hard, but you've
Mhm.
got nine businesses you're bringing together, nine farmers, and they all have different things. And I mean, how has that worked out for you guys?
It has worked out well for us just from the standpoint that I was an early user of rooted farmers just for my own farm. Because again, I just like, I love the systems. I love it when things are clear and just like there's a process for things. And
Sure.
with, just the individual farmer account on Rooted, like you upload the photo, the price is right there. No one's going to haggle me. No one, you can't haggle. It's the price is there, buy it or don't, because
Hmm.
I'm a sucker. It's like, if you're like, oh, could you do this price? Like, I might say yes. Like I don't want to be shaken down. So I really, really just enjoy having this, I had my farm profile and people could buy from it. So when we were getting, organized, basically everybody started their own individual rooted farmers accounts, and I think that that really helped with the learning curve.
Good
Everybody
idea.
learned, yeah, you could figure out how to upload your photos and post on your own timeline and that sort of thing. And then when we made the decision to form a collective, we went through like training for that together. And Rooted Farmers has, with the gardeners workshop, the garden workshop, a collectives 101 course you can take.
Hmm.
So we all took that together and like that was really helpful. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's definitely a learning curve because again, like we'd all been operating on our own timelines and now we all kind of have to get on this similar schedule. So our pre-orders open on Thursday afternoons. That means you've got to be available to go and estimate what you have to list for the next week on Wednesday or Thursday so that you can post your availability. Um, and then our pre-orders close on Monday. No, sorry. Yeah, wait, yeah, Mondays at 5. I was like, wait, was it Sundays? But we changed it, but Monday at 5. Um, which means you've really got Monday and Tuesday to harvest, to drop off on Wednesday. So yeah, being able, like some of our farms do farmers markets, some of them do other pop-up like retail markets, some of them do subscriptions. So everybody kind of like figuring out how to gel that into their own schedule and their own routine.
Hmm.
It just takes a lot of patience and a lot of like encouragement, and it's okay. It's slow. Like yeah, 1 week, like you might not be able to list, and that's okay. And we get it. Like we're all, a lot of us are moms or parents of young children. And so um it's never like a smooth, week. Everybody's got stuff. So just being able to, how do I say this? Like be able to be understanding of people's life events and their own like personal business goals while still trying to run like a business that is the collective. It's like that's a business in itself.
Hmm.
So that has been definitely a challenge, just respecting everybody's individual business goals, but also like respecting that we're working collaboratively on this thing that will fall apart if we're not all giving a little bit. It might not be your perfect schedule. It might not be your perfect timing, but if it's the thing that works for everybody, then we all have to give a little bit. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's true of any business, but I think, when you're trying to bring nine businesses under one umbrella,
Mhm.
that's especially true. And I think that's awesome, though. I think it's good that you recognize that and that you're facilitating that, because it's easy just to find fault or easy to get frustrated, but um, everybody has a down week. Everybody
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
challenge with, kids being sick or,
Yeah.
whatever that is. And how nice that, everyone kind of just works together through it. So,
Right. And I think too, like I my my the so just to back up a little bit here, in California, it's really hard to found like a co-op without like a bunch of capital input. So we agreed that this would just be like a sole proprietorship just to get things going. It was the
Mhm.
fastest way. And that's like one of the most common questions I get in California. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody out there if they're looking to form a collective in their area. I've heard from a lot of people in other states that like forming a co-op it's just not as difficult. And I think that that's like ideally how we would be set up if we could, but it just worked better for us and to just be a sole proprietorship. But in doing that, I also knew that I couldn't do this like completely by myself. So
Right.
I like want a florist that's like really well known in our area and she's really well respected to be our co-founder. And so Darcy Hovsepian is our co-founder and I love her so much. And she's like the calm, like absorbs all of the chaos and then just like spits out like this like really wonderful solution, just like even keeled solution to everyone. And it's like, oh, thanks, Darcy. Thanks for, and then all of us growers are like, oh, the bugs, the aphids, the grasshoppers, the this, the that. And so she's definitely like our rock, and helps like organize all of us. So I'm definitely the one that's like, okay, guys, like I know it's a tough week because I'm out there cutting too. I'm out there planting, I'm harvesting, like I get it. And I think that that's really important too, that I'm not like just sitting on my comfy couch in the air conditioning being like, guys, make sure you get your listing up or anything like that. Like I'm up, I know like what it takes to get out there and get your listings up. So anyway, I don't know if that was clear or anything, but I think that it takes a balance of personalities, I guess, to like make everything work together. And if
Sure.
people are joining a collective and they're doing it solely to increase their own sales, I will say that is not going to work. Like that is just not, um, it's too hard. It's too hard if that's your only goal. But if you are joining because you know that like by working together and getting the word out and amplifying each other's like sales, that is going to be, we're all going to rise together, then you're a good candidate for a collective. But if you're coming in just because you're like, yep, I do this trade show, I do this farmer's market, and I sell through this collective, like that's not going to work out. You've got to be like in it and invested in lifting all of your other farmers up too.
I love that. That's a great point. Because I feel like sometimes it, not that it sounds too good to be true, but that we don't realize the need for community within a collective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's more than just showing up. It's being part of a community. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
yeah,
you have to be okay with the fact that like you're someone that you grow alongside might get the 12 bunch order of the blush ranunculus, even though you had 12 bunches of blush ranunculus listed right alongside them. And there's two ways to look at that. It's, this person sold and why didn't mine sell? Or it's like, okay, like what did they do to market their flowers and how can I learn from them so that I'm, going to sell my blush ranunculus next week. Um, or, well, hey, maybe that was a new florist that came to shop with us and maybe they'll be back next week for 24 bunches of blush ranunculus. So I think just like having a positive perspective on it versus a competitive perspective. Um, and I definitely don't want to make it sound like we're all running businesses here. We're all very driven to make a profit at the end of the day. So it's not like I'm saying, oh yeah, you have to be okay with losing money to your fellow farmer or something like that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying like that by having a growth mindset and growth mindset attitude by working together, like we've definitely seen our sales grow a lot. I know I wouldn't have sold as many flowers as I've currently sold if I were just working by myself and really competing against my fellow farmers. Because if we didn't offer one pickup location and one sales shopping page, I just think that the price shopping would be very intense in our area with florists, and they probably would only have time to pick up from 2 or 3 farms. So you'd really be losing out on sales, and the competitive nature in our area would be a lot more negative and a lot less like collaborative. So
Right. Well, and I think you creating a single point that's convenient for people to pick up.
yeah.
It's an interesting. I don't know if I ever shared this story before, but a long time ago, I knew a restaurant owner that sold their property to like CVS or Walgreens or somebody like that. And I think it was Walgreens. And I was scratching my head. I'm like, why would they put a Walgreens right across the street from a CVS? And it's like because they're expecting more people in the area, and they're
Mhm.
expecting, if people are coming for that they're going to also, I mean, it's like they have the vision of knowing how traffic flows and the demand, and that, when you have them, when you build it, they will come, and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And once you start making this shopping experience, a high value, convenient situation with a single
Mhm.
pickup area, all of a sudden more people hear about it, more people come, and it's not just about the 12 bunches, it's about 50 bunches, and how are we going to fill that order? I mean, it becomes, more and more validating everything that you've invested in it. So, which I think is
Yeah.
great. I think it's great.
Yeah. No, we're
Um,
really
I'm,
excited.
I, I am curious though, when you say you started it as a sole proprietor, is
Yeah.
that is that is that under your business? Is there who is that affiliated with? Because it's obviously has to get attached to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's you.
It's me.
So how does that work? I mean, does that impact your personal taxes, or is it
Yeah.
how does
Um,
that work?
well, I right away hired a bookkeeper because I was like, this is way too complicated for me to figure out.
I understand.
Yeah, so we take a collective fee from every sale that goes through our platform, and that just helps pay for like our overhead expenses, like running the cooler, just running our website, paying for the rooted platform fee, printing flyers, purchasing buckets, everything.
Hmm.
Um, so, but with all that being said, running a collective is you don't really make that much profit. So you're just mostly passing through the money to
Oh, that
the,
makes sense.
so it doesn't really impact me that much as long as the books are clear and like,
Right.
well, yeah.
Yeah, because at the end you're really not making money. The money that
Right.
is made
Yeah.
goes to pay the farmers, which is then an expense. So
Right.
yeah, it all washes out. Now that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
We do payouts once a month, and the bank account goes back down, and so there's not that much money to really like manage, or for anybody to really like come after tax wise. So it's not too big of a thing. The liability is definitely more of my concern, but I think we're just really buttoned up with our terms and conditions and things like that. And yeah.
Sure. No, I
Probably
get it. Yeah.
nothing.
Well, we always like to wrap up our episodes, and this has been so good with an advice question. So I'm wondering what piece of advice you'd love to leave our listeners.
Oh man. Um, I think I'm not an expert grower. Like I'm not from I don't even own my own land, but I hope that if there's anything I've shared that's like encouraged you, if you felt like, well, I can't afford my own acreage, or how do I get started, or um, how do I like, I want to do this thing, but I don't have, $1 million to go drop on 5 acres right now. Like, I don't either. So, but there's always a way to start. And I do think that doors start to open once you just like raise your hand and say, I'm interested in this thing and I'm passionate about it. And I have good intentions. And so I think that as long as if you're truly interested in flower farming, then I think you could start in your backyard and just see where it takes you, because that's how I started. So yeah. And I still don't own my own land. And I think that's okay. Like, I think that if you know you want to be doing this for the rest of your life, then don't burn out. Don't, sputter out, out of despair by going too hard on it for the first 5 years. Just know that, like, be confident in your own vision, I guess. Be confident in your own dream. And yeah, hopefully that's helpful to somebody.
Well, the thing I can appreciate and love about what I've heard, and I know I was talking before, um, is even though you don't own your own land, you're investing this time in yourself. Because, there's a lot of times, I mean, I've seen it and heard it where, like, I wouldn't know the questions to ask if I was going to go out and buy 5 acres. Like, I wouldn't know, what am I looking for? What do I want? What, is it in a floodplain? Does it have a well? Can it have a well? Is it on city? I mean, all these things. And while you're learning to grow, you're also learning things you like and you don't like, and it helps bring you to a point where when the time comes, you know how to answer or look for the right questions. So
Totally. Nothing can replace like an hour spent learning to grow something. I think experience is everything. And as long as you can not lose money, learning while you wait for that dream to come true, then I think that that's time well spent. So
I agree. Well, Natalie, thank you so much for being on the Flower Podcast.
thank you for having me, Scott. It was so fun talking to you. Could talk to you forever about flowers and collectives and all those good things.
Yeah, absolutely.